Welcome to Conversations with Diana. Today's special guest is none other than Marcel Stewart. Marcel is an actor, writer, arts educator, organizer, active listener, hip hop enthusiast, and he says he loves listening to Waiting to Exhale soundtrack while cleaning. He believes it is his responsibility as an artist to explore the intersection of race and gender, particularly blackness and masculinity. He has a curiosity for history and lineage within the context of colonialism, which is the basis of his art. How did we get here? Who have we lost? How do we heal from individual and collective trauma? What does it mean to be a leader? Are storytellers leaders? What stories need to be told? What are the responsibilities and accountabilities of being an art practitioner? Are just some of the questions that he seeks to answer. To Marcel, communication and active listening are key values. Genuine kindness and being his true, authentic self in all of his nuanced imperfections are life goals. He's still figuring it out, and that's okay. Stopping to take a breath of fresh air is a part of the journey. He's also the outreach director at Suitcase in Point Theatre Company. Hi, Marcel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Diana. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure having you on the show, finally.
Yeah, we've been talking for a long time. I'm glad we could make this work.
Yes, thank you so much for joining. Can you share quickly how you first realized that you had a passion for theater and filmmaking? I realize you have a lot of passions, but let's start with those for now.
The thing, what? I didn't see a lot of theater growing up, but I got to witness my grandparents, the way they speak to each other quite often. And they passed away the last couple of years. But I have really clear, fond memories of my nan and my granddad at the dinner table bickering about how ripe the potatoes are and the way to steam them and the particular way to eat chicken and the way that they went on was so over the top and caricature-esque that I think it kind of just got ingrained into me. And I just found myself being very, eccentric, and I speak with my hands all the time. I'm a hands talker. It wasn't until probably high school that I saw that I really got interested into theater. And my first play was, I think, in grade 10. I saw another Black student in a play in grade 9. And I was like, wait, we can do that? I didn't know we can also perform and do these things. And so I auditioned the following year and I got into a play. And I remember just walking out on stage the first time, kind of hearing the reaction of the people in the audience and the adrenaline that it filled me with. And I was like, ooh, I like this. I like this a lot.
And you got hooked.
I got hooked, the bug, right?
You got the bug.
Yeah. And then as I continued on, I started to learn more about the technique and emotional well and where to pull from. It's an honor for real, to just go out there and be able to share a story with a group of people and have them lean in. When people are really engaged, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. So it wasn't an immediate moment. The passion kind of came gradually throughout. I've always loved being outgoing and gregarious and eccentric, but actually putting it into artistry kind of just came along step by step.
Was there a pivotal moment though that you can remember? I know you may mention of your grandparents and how they kind of influence that side of you, but can you pinpoint one pivotal moment or an occasion that it really stuck out that yes, this is where I want to be, this is where I feel most comfortable?
So in talking to you now, Will Smith on Fresh Prince,
yes,
was like role model for me growing up. I wanted to be as cool and smooth and fresh as Will was on that show. But like in real life, I remember seeing a play. I might have been in grade 6, grade 5, and we went and saw a production of Dracula, I think. And I just, I was in grade 6. What was it, like 10 to 11? I remember getting so swept up in the story and the character and the set design. I remember smoke on stage and Dracula kind of descending from the rafters and being like,
Mm.
oh, that's really cool. That's really
Yes.
cool. So I have yet to do, actually, no, that's not true. I've done one of those big blockbuster kind of, live performance productions.
Yes.
And there's nothing quite like it. It's magic. It's truly magic.
Can you put into words what the feeling is? I know so many artists say that it's like, as you mentioned, there's nothing quite like it. What's the closest thing? Can you describe that feeling in
Mm,
a sentence or two?
yeah, it's it's different depending on the role and depending on like the scenario or the circumstance. There have been shows of mine where it feels like I'm not there anymore. Like
Mm.
I've
Like an out
transcended
of
in a
body
way. And
experience, like?
yeah, yeah. And then there have been other experiences where um, where like uh, it's like supreme confidence. It's like an ego boost
Mm.
where a line will land and the crowd is laughing for like 15, 20, 30 seconds,
Mm.
and I have to wait, because I don't want to keep talking over and then the lines get missed. So I'm waiting and I'm kind of basking in that. And it feels nice. There's a level of, approval and acceptance and joy that comes from that.
Mm. That's amazing. I think I can attest to what you feel because I remember catching the acting bug, so to speak, when I was in a play myself, and there's nothing there. The feeling is almost indescribable, but it's palpable, and that freedom that comes with it, it's you can't get it anywhere else. I don't think. Um,
Yeah, right. Like I
Depending on your
understand what
passion,
people,
everybody.
depending on your passion, right?
Yes, yeah.
I understand some people when they say that they have a fear of public speaking, that they get
Mm,
really tight and anxious and they kind of stop. And for me, like that's the moment where I like step into myself or step out of myself,
mm.
and I kind of embrace that moment. I
You
feel
mean
like
when you're on
outside of that,
stage? When you're on stage?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like outside of that, um, I'm not the greatest risk taker, like I assess things and I over assess and over analyze. But on stage, there's something about the freedom that you're speaking to where like I could just let it go and whatever happens, happens, because I can't control how people receive what I give them. Sometimes I think my performance is really awful and bad, and the audience will come back and be like, "Oh my, like you really connected. Oh my good, I
Yes.
can't believe." And I'm like, "That one, really?" Or
Yes.
other times when I'm like, "Ooh, I killed it," and then
Yes.
no one comes up and says a word after the show. So
It's like the opposite effect.
that's right. That's right.
It's because you're in your calling. I think it's because you're walking in your true purpose. And I've often heard people say they're uncomfortable elsewhere, but when they're walking in their purpose, it's like everything is golden. That confidence that you
Mhm.
speak of, it's like you don't have to fight it. You don't have to, it comes naturally. So
Yes.
I think you're onto something. What's your favorite thing about being an artist? And I'm going to talk a little bit about your filmmaking debut as well after this.
Okay. Favorite thing is, I mean, it's part of the magic, it's having an idea, conceptualizing it, um, writing it down or drawing it out or putting it on sheets of paper on my room to kind of like see like how can it come together, and then the process of investigating it, opening it up, finding the details in it, I start doubting myself. I'm like, no one's gonna want to watch this or see this, and then having to
Mm.
overcome that doubt. It's the journey. It's the journey from idea to like full development. That's the favorite part for me. It's about the process. I
So,
learned so much about myself and how I work and um, uh, yeah, like challenging how I meet deadlines, like those things. I think what
mm,
stand out for me. Hmm.
it's amazing. Can you talk a bit about your because I've seen a few of your work, and it's just it keeps you wanting more. I told you that, right? That is
Yeah,
when is the
thank
next
you.
part gonna drop, right? Can you tell me about that process of filmmaking? How did you transition into that from being on the stage to being maybe behind the camera or writing?
Yeah, so my collaborator, Neil Owusu, he and I went to high school together. And oh, maybe like grade 11, grade 12, we had said that we wanted to like make films. We wanted to do
Mm.
what the Coen brothers do. And we'd always talk like year after year. We'd come back, we'd meet up at Denny's and, talk well into the night about these ideas we wanted to put together. We never actually put them together. And then, and then one summer, it might have been 7, 8 years ago, um, Neil had an idea to film a short movie about a guy cycling through Toronto. And so we wrote that script. Neil chose to direct it. I wrote the script and I worked with the actors.
Mhm.
And it was that experience. And I was like, oh, like I kind of have a penchant for this kind of thing. Like, theater making is really awesome because it's like one take, you have one shot,
Yes.
right? Film, we can try things in different ways. And, we shot from 7 in the morning when the sun came up, and we went all the way until like nighttime to get the right like nighttime shot. So there's like
Mm.
location scouting and there's all these other factors that go into the filmmaking process. Those are really, really cool. But it also takes a lot of time. Like we did that movie in 2013, and then Neil and I spent probably 3 years writing, fundraising, like getting enough money to do our second film, which was a two-hander called Chance Encounter, and it took place inside of an elevator. And
Yes,
for
that's the one I
that,
saw.
that's
Yes.
the one you saw. Okay.
Yes.
And for that, we wrote the script over like 18 months, going
Mm.
back and forth between drafts, having meetings, reading the scripts, asking friends to come through and give their opinion on it. We hired our two actors. We did some really interesting rehearsing where I took our two actors, like the film's about a couple that encounters each other years after they've already
Yes.
broken up. And there's like
Yeah.
unresolved issues and all that. And
Hmm.
so we decided to, or I decided to, my suggestion was in order to develop what that relationship was like, let's just go out in like the street and you two just like, what would it be like if this was your first date? And they just like walked around and pretended they were on their first date. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yes.
Like now let's try it. And you are on date number, like it's your third year in a relationship. Like what's that going to be like? And then we just kept playing out different scenarios, and it was really interesting to see
Uh-huh.
what they were able to build, and that they created a
Yes.
relationship. It was really cool.
It was, and it translated so well on the camera. Let me tell you.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, we gotta drop that link to that film so people can watch it, man. It was
Definitely.
awesome. Awesome.
Definitely will do. Yeah.
Are you working on any new projects that you can talk about right now, or
Am I
want to
working?
put you on the
Yeah.
spot?
So
But
I guess there's an ongoing project that I'm working on that I truthfully haven't put pen to paper
mm,
in a while, and it's loosely based on my father's, like a story on my dad, his relationship to his father,
mm-hmm,
and I want to explore what the relationship is between men, between father
mm,
and son, particularly Caribbean men.
yes.
Trey Anthony has a show called How Black Mothers Say I Love You, which is a beautiful play. I think I saw it 4 or 5 years ago in Toronto. And I remember I took my mom to see the play with me. And at the end of the show, my mom leans over and she goes, "You need to write the show How Black Fathers Say I Love
Yes.
You." Because how do they do that?
Yeah.
And, my dad and I have had lengthy conversations about his relationship to his father and how fractured it was when he was growing up. And how he said, like, "I'm not going to raise my son the way that, you raised me." And as he got older, he realized, like, I actually was, raising my son the same way because that's all I know, So me, as I'm entering into my mid-30s, I'm starting to recognize that, I had my dad on a pedestal for most of my life. And, he's just a regular guy. He's a regular guy who had a child and, like, was doing the best that he could with what he knew, right? And it's not perfect, but I'm still here. I think I'm thriving. I'm doing well, and I wanna tell that story. My dad comes from Jamaica, so, like, I'm interested in his journey from Jamaica to England, and now he lives in St. Catharines. Like, what is that journey? That's which I think you can relate to a bit about as
Yes,
well,
for
right?
sure, for sure. It's been a heck of a journey. I think it's good when you can see your parents and understand, when they tell their story. Because a lot of times I'm finding now, when I speak to my parents and hearing the things that they went through, and it just it's like I'm part of the journey, but a big part of my journey was their journey, if that makes sense. So I think in understanding what your father's journey was like, it helps you to tap into your own journey. It's like they're intertwined. So I do get it, and I think I'm intrigued to know more. Like, you gotta write that. You gotta write that story.
Well, and also because, like, unfortunately, like, slavery and oppression and like, colonial trauma is so linked to our ancestry. And so for me, like, I can only trace my ancestry back 2 generations. So, like, I'd love to know more, like, and obviously we can't travel right now because of COVID, but I would really like to eventually get to Jamaica and see where my dad grew up and continue doing some of that ancestral work to heal myself from generations of trauma,
You gotta do it. Yeah, my
Mm-hmm.
father is Barbadian born, so I remember growing up wanting to connect with that side of him. And it's not until I went there to live, and I lived there for several years prior to moving to Canada, that I really understood him. I got him. That is why he is the way he is. And it's almost as if when I first got there, it was like I was home. I can't explain it. It was like I was there before. So,
Yeah.
and when you talk about trauma being intrinsic, it's in your genes. I watched something the other day, not to take anything away from your story, but trauma is in our genes from ancestors all the way back down. When you're battling with something you don't know why, it's because of what our ancestors went through, someone in the bloodline. And the whole thing about being taken from a place, being enslaved, and the things
Yes.
that we had to go through, the things that we do, we don't understand why we do them. It was like a mechanism of coping for our forefathers, and things like the way we talk to our children, not even realizing it. Why are Caribbean people so strict in terms of discipline as opposed to our North American counterparts? Yeah, I could go on and on, but let me not
No,
digress.
you're preaching.
So yeah, you gotta write that. That's definitely something that I see a lot of people would be really interested in. Tell me,
Cool.
just segueing into another aspect of your life, what you currently do as the outreach director at Suitcase in Point Theatre Company. and being the main person for the Nest residency. How do you mind telling us more about that and how you got into that?
Yeah. So, prior to this position, I was an artist, actor in Toronto, and I didn't practice self-care uh, in the ways that I should have. I went from show to show, and oftentimes those plays were challenging, traumatic, and I didn't give myself the opportunity to kind of process or heal where I went. I just went on to the next show. I ended up burning out big time. And in taking a break, this opportunity came up. I decided to go with it, leave Toronto for some time, come out to St. Catharines, and see, what foundational tools I can help provide for the next generation coming up. I'm inspired by an artist named Kim Harvey, who's out in Vancouver. And Kim said once that everything she does is for the next generation. It's not for right now. It's not for me. It's for who's coming up next.
That's right.
And so that's what fuels a lot of the work that I do with Suitcase. It's like St. Catharines has a rich Black history. I feel like it's not as prominent or spoken about as it should be.
Yes.
And I would like the young Black artists or the young Black emerging artists to know that there's space and there's room and there's access for them to continue developing their work, to continue developing their craft. And so I try to reach out, but we haven't quite got there yet. So with the artists that we're able to work with currently, a lot of them come from, theater institutions that are heavily colonial, kind of have like a white supremacist lens on their work. So I'm working with young people on how to decolonize some of that. And like, what are some of the practices that you were taught before that aren't going to serve you going forward? And what's great in a way, if I can use that word, I mean, this time is very tough and challenging and negative for so many people.
Yes.
But because theater has stopped, we can all take a collective chance to like look at some of the holes and the flaws and talk to these young people about like, how do you want to fill those holes and flaws? What kind of theater do you want to enter into when we come out of this moment of pause? It's been some really interesting and meaningful conversations around what the audience means, how to integrate ceremony and ritual into the work that you're doing, looking at theater as an offering to an audience and then having a conversation with them afterward. So to me, theater is about sharing, offering performance, and then community engagement, right? And then like, how did that land with you? And so that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do at Suitcase, is to engage more with the community and find out like, how can we serve the community? What kind of artistic needs can we provide and fill?
Gosh, that's heavy. When I say that's heavy, I mean, there are so many dismantling of ideologies, and currently with what's going on with, Black Lives Matter movement, and this has been shaping up to be some year, right? To say the least.
It's wild,
Everything is evolving and things are slowly shifting, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting come, say, this time next year, what theater and what's that going to evolve into, because there's so many changes that have come out of what has happened with George Floyd and all the different things that have transpired since then, the elections and the whole race thing being upended again. It's like there's just so many things. So I I'm really curious to know what that's going to look like, because I'm glad to hear that you are asking them, the youth, to think about how they want to see theater, how do they want to tell their story, how what's missing, and trying
Yeah,
to fill that gap.
right. Because a lot of young people that I speak to talk about accessibility, how expensive theater can be.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the theater, the local theater here, doesn't feel as accessible for a young person of color. They don't see themselves on stage. So how can they? Like, what are the things that theater companies can do to invite a younger, more culturally diverse audience? I think those are the questions that should still be asked now, because a lot of theater companies started putting up messages after the George Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor outcry, standing in solidarity, Black Lives Matter. And it's like, okay, solidarity is one thing. How are you actually going to shift the
Yes.
culture in your theaters to make it more accessible for young people of color?
Mm-hmm. Is it just lip service, or are you really going to? Yeah.
We'll see,
That's
right?
why
We'll
I say
see.
it's gonna be interesting to see what
Mm-hmm.
happens. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so in terms of the pandemic, I ask all my guests this question. How has it impacted you and even what you do?
Well, I mean, I can't see my mom. Uh, I'm a mama's boy, straight up.
Yeah.
So I think about her all the time. She's by herself.
Is she
Um,
overseas, or is she?
she's in Brampton. She's local.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Brampton has a really high rate right now.
Yes.
And because we're not in the same bubble, um,
You have to
I
be.
don't want to risk it. You have to be safe,
You
right?
gotta be safe. Yeah. That's
Um,
hard. That's rough.
yeah, tons of family overseas as well. That it's really stretched my capacity. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how often I think about family and people. Um, in terms of the work that I do, Diana, I got really angry this summer. I got really,
Yeah.
I found, the pandemic is one thing. I found that there was a lot of what I perceive to be lip service.
Mm.
Um, and with regards to social justice, the racial tensions going on,
Mm-hmm.
um, and people were reaching out to me and asking what they could do and asking how they could be of service and those kinds of things, and
You're supposed to have all the
I
answers.
you know what I mean, like
Like who,
I'm mourning, I'm
you just,
grieving,
yeah,
like like go Google that, like
I understand. That's not your responsibility. I mean,
no,
not because I'm black means I,
right.
yeah, I get you.
uh,
I do
so
get
I
you.
sat in that anger and that frustration, and I went in hiding. I didn't answer my phone. I did all the things for a while, and then I came out of it and decided to use my art and try to speak to this time. And so the idea came to do this mixtape, and that's kind of how we
Yes, that's
started
how we
talking.
connected. Sort of, yes. That was amazing,
um,
by the way. I mean, you ran with that, and gosh, I don't think you even envision what that tape would have ended up being.
no, and
Mm,
the other thing about art, I think you said, what's my favorite thing about being an artist? Is the
yeah.
connections I make with people, right? Because art is meant to connect
Yes.
and bring
Yes.
together. And, that mixtape brought about this opportunity right now, a chance for you and I to
Yes.
connect, for you
Yes.
to be join the board at Suitcase and Point.
Yes.
I've made a lot of connections in the community here because of that mixtape that I didn't have prior, and it's reminded me that even in dark times there's still light, still.
Yes, there is. We
So
can't
sometimes
lose
you just gotta
hope.
find it, right?
We
Can't lose
can't
hope.
give up. And
Mm-mm.
even though you were angry and you had every right to be, you channeled that. You channeled that anger and that frustration, and look at what you created, and what you
Well,
are going to
yeah,
create. Because I can see so many things. My mind is spinning right now, like the influence you can have, especially with the young people. Don't take that for
thank
granted.
you. Thank you. Yeah, that's work that me and my therapist are doing all the time is trying to step into my light and to continue on the journey. And there is something about leadership that I'm hesitant about, but I'm being encouraged to continue stepping into. Um,
Yeah.
my mom reminds me we need more, black men as leaders.
Yes.
Black
Yes.
women can't keep shouldering the load. Like
Yes.
man, them have to step up. So I'm
Hmm.
learning each day, each day.
Yeah. The very thing you're running from is the thing that will save you, I've heard. You just never know.
Cha.
Yeah. So walk through the fear, walk through the fire.
No. Yes, yes.
How do you stay focused and motivated? Oh my gosh. Especially now.
How do I stay focused? I like to run a lot.
Ah.
So when I am running, I think I find the focus. I put music on, and I just go. Um, and it's healing. It's energizing. It lets me escape. It lets me run into. It makes me feel free. Makes me feel
Mhm.
strong. Um, for some reason, my mind also runs too, and ideas come to me as I'm running, and sometimes I'll stop and I'll just record it into my phone real quick, and then I'll come back and I'll unpack it. But that's my main thing is using my body. I
Mm-hmm.
can often live up here quite a lot.
Yes.
Using my body grounds me.
But it's a great way to burn off the COVID pounds. I don't know about you, but let me tell you, it wasn't kind. But
I'm
it's
still
great
putting
that
them
you're
on.
you're like the
What?
second guest I've had that says they've ran. Although that other
Mm,
guest, she actually prior to COVID, she was into the gym a lot. So, but it's good that you
okay.
channel that energy into running. And before we go, because it's been such the time just flies when you're having
It
fun.
flies, eh? I know.
These are so many things I want to ask. What kind of advice can you give anyone watching who is interested in getting into arts or filmmaking or anything to do with theater, especially if they're an immigrant?
Yeah. It's hard to do, but do it for you first, right? Make the thing that you would want. Don't worry about how other people would receive it, how other people would, criticize it, or make the thing that you want. Um, some of it's not going to be good. Like I know in my writing circles, I often tell my students we can get blocked by a whole bunch of different things, and nothing will come out, and we'll get frustrated, and we'll just close the book and we'll leave. And I encourage you to keep going, like work through the muck and the mud, and like let that come out of you, and you'll be surprised the gems that are in there. Or once it's out, you'll be surprised how easy your pen just starts going. So like don't be discouraged if the first thing or the first 10 things aren't masterpieces. Like what even is a masterpiece, right?
Yes.
Like try and get that out of your head and just do what you want to do, what you think and what you see, and just let that live.
Wow. Thanks for that. I mean, that's resonated with me because sometimes as a creator, you're trying to figure out, is this gonna work? What will people think? Just get rid of that. Just go within and let God lead the way, in terms of your
That's
where you want to what you want to achieve or accomplish. Thanks for
that's
that bit of
right.
advice. And Marcel, how can people connect with you if they want to reach out?
Yeah. I'm on the Twitters at Marcy Stews. You can email me, marcel.v.stewart@gmail.com. Or you can find me on the Suitcase and Point website, suitcaseandpoint.com.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Marcel. It was indeed a pleasure.
Thank you, Diana. This has been great.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. And to everyone watching, thanks for tuning in. To continue to see interviews of real people with real stories, all you have to do is hit subscribe, enable notifications, like, share, and follow.